Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Really excited to have you back for another one. As you continue on your Linux journey, we did a video setting up Red Hat Enterprise Linux on Windows, specifically using VirtualBox. VirtualBox is a free virtualization software that allows you to run a guest operating system on your host. So in this case, what I'm referring to in this video is we are running Red Hat Enterprise Linux on a Windows machine. And if you're not familiar with the video and you're using Windows and you want to follow along, make sure you go ahead and watch that video. Links will be in the description. But this video is going to be specifically for my folks that are on Mac. You want to make sure that you guys are also able to follow along and learn as well. So in my hands is a really old MacBook Pro. And I say old because in the world of technology, this is a 2012 model, by the way. Over 10 years is actually extremely old in the world of technology. But one of the things that I want you all to learn from this situation is that when you have older technology, it's still good to have that technology to do some things with it. Especially in this case, we're going to utilize this in order to learn Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Just like we did in our Windows video, I'm going to walk you step by step on how to make sure that you set up VirtualBox and virtualize Red Hat Enterprise Linux on this MacBook Pro 2012 model. Now keep in mind, this video is specifically for Intel-based Macs. If you have one of the newer Macs that are based on the ARM architecture, specifically the M series chip, this video does not apply to you as it's a completely different architecture and the steps here unfortunately won't work. So make sure you understand the specifications of your Mac. And if you have any questions on the specification, you can always go to apple.com and research what's inside of your Mac, and it will tell you whether it's an Intel-based Mac or if it's an ARM-based Mac. Now, before we jump into the steps on setting up the environment, don't forget to give me a like for the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications so you're notified whenever we upload a new video to the channel, and share the video with a family member or friend so that way they can learn. And lastly, check out the video descriptions as there's always information there on all the latest things that we have going on the channel. So with all the items out of the way, let's jump into setting up VirtualBox and virtualizing RHEL on this Intel-based MacBook Pro 2012. Welcome to my Mac, and up on the screen here we have virtualbox.org, and of course you obviously launch the web browser, which is Safari, and we head over to virtualbox.org. Once we head over there, we can click on downloads, and once we go to downloads, you'll be presented with the VirtualBox platform packages. We want to make sure that we specifically download the Mac OS package. And once we do that, we'll give it a second to download. And once it's done downloading, we can go check our downloads folder where we can see the actual DMG file that was downloaded from VirtualBox. So let's go ahead and open that up. And once it's done opening, you can see here that in order to install VirtualBox, we double click on the icon. And once we double click on the icon, it brings up the installer for Oracle VirtualBox. So let's go ahead and keep all the defaults and click on install, and it's going to ask us for our password. So we'll put that in and we'll give this a minute or so to finish installing. The installation was successful. Let's close out of this window and we're going to move the installer into the trash since we don't need it. So let's go ahead and open up another tab here in Safari, and let's head over to the developers page at redhat.com. So again, I'll leave a link in the description of where you need to go for Red Hat developers page. But this part of the video, as you're seeing me log into my Red Hat developers account, this assumes that you already have an account. So if you do not have a Red Hat developers account, I'm going to put a link in the description where you can sign up in order to get one. So after logging into the Red Hat developers account, let's go and click on products and technology and head over to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Now let's click on downloads and signups. And once we click on downloads and signups, we scroll all the way to the bottom. And once we scroll to the bottom, you'll start to see all downloads and the different versions of RHEL. Now remember, since we are running RHEL 8.7, we make our way to 8.7.0, and you're going to see the x86 64 DVD ISO, which is 11.33 gigs in size. Let's go ahead and click the download button in order to download the DVD ISO for RHEL 8.7. Now you should see that the download automatically kicks off and starts downloading. Now, of course, earlier on in the video, when we looked at the downloads directory, you already saw that I had the RHEL 8.7 DVD ISO already there. But in the interest of showing everybody how to do this process, I'm re-downloading the DVD ISO for you. So all we have to do now is give this a couple of minutes in order to download. Remember, this is a large size, so it's going to take a little bit of time depending on your internet connection. So I'll speed this up a little bit so we can get to the end of the download. Now that we have VirtualBox installed and we also have our RHEL 8.7 DVD ISO, the next step is to launch VirtualBox. And we do that by going into the Launchpad. And as you can see, we have VirtualBox here. So let's go ahead and click on that. Up comes VirtualBox. And let's go ahead and start creating our RHEL 8.7 VM or virtual machine. First item that we do is we're going to click on New. We're going to name our RHEL VM. So I'll call it RHEL 8.7. Folder we can keep as is. ISO. Let's make sure that we click on the RHEL 8.7 x86 64 DVD ISO that we downloaded earlier. Let's go ahead and click next. We're going to add a username here. In my case, I'll put L Acosta. Make sure you give it a password and don't forget your password. And let's change our host name. And I'll keep it at RHEL 8.7. So in order to be valid, we have to get rid of the space. And let's make sure that we click on guest editions as well. I want to install guest editions. So let's go ahead and click next. For base memory, we're going to keep it the same at 2 gigs and processor 1 CPU will be okay. As far as your hard drive, how much space you're going to give it, we're going to do 100 gigs. And here's a summary of all the settings that we've changed. So let's go ahead and hit finish on that. And now the RHEL 8.7 machine is powering up. It's going to complete the unintended install that we configured earlier. Hey everyone, just a quick little note here. When you're powering up your VM in VirtualBox for the first time, you may be presented with keystroke receiving. So this message that comes up that says, VirtualBox would like to receive your keystrokes from any applications. So we're going to allow that by opening the system preferences. And once we get to system preferences under the privacy tab, we're going to click the lock icon. We're going to type in our password in order to make sure that we can make changes. So let's go ahead and click VirtualBox and then quit now. And then the second thing is when launching VirtualBox, you may be presented with this message that says, VirtualBox would like to control this computer using accessibility features. So let's go ahead and open System Preferences. And under the Privacy tab, we're going to click on the little lock in the corner and we're going to type in our password to make changes. We're going to click on VirtualBox and this will allow the apps below to control your computer. We can close out of that. And now VirtualBox should have the necessary settings in order to be able to capture the keystrokes and also as well be able to work with the operating system under certain privacy settings. So if you didn't notice, the unintended install means we're going to give it the settings in order to go ahead on its own install RHEL 8.7 using the settings that we gave it, and we don't have to sit there and actually configure it by hand. So as you can see here, the ISO is booting up, and with the settings that we gave it earlier, the unintended install settings, it's loading up our settings and installing the operating system onto the virtual hard disk. So this process will take a little bit depending on the performance of your machine. So we're going to let this run its course and install all the packages necessary in order to make sure that the operating system comes up on its own. So let's speed up this process and see what it looks like after we're done installing all the packages and the operating system is ready for you to use. After the install process is complete, here is what you're presented with, and it's RHEL 8.7 up and running, waiting for you to log in. So as you remember in the beginning when we configured our login, we had L Acosta as our username. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to this virtual machine. Keep in mind, you obviously want to use what you put in the configuration. And of course, I have to make sure that I type my password in correctly in order to be able to go into the operating system. So now that we're in the operating system, there's a couple of steps that we need to run in order to make sure that you're all set. And what I mean by all set is there's certain packages that you need in order to make sure that you can work with the operating system. Because right now, the way it sits, there's a lot of items that are missing. First item on the list, so we don't run into any permission issues, we are going to switch to root. And in order to switch to root, you type in SU space and the username, of course, which is root. And then you're prompted for a password. And remember, the password to root is the same password that you use to set up your username. And you should have changed your username to root, which you're seeing up on the screen. So I know that the font is a little bit small. And in order to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and blow this up. So that way we can see exactly what's going on here. in order to make sure that we have everything that we need to get this virtual machine up and running is registering the machine with Red Hat in order to be able to access all the repository. We do that by using the subscription manager register auto attach command. So take a second to pause the video so that way you can capture that command correctly. And when you type in the command correctly, you'll start to see that you're presented with a username and password. Now remember, that username and password is the same username and password that you use for your Red Hat developer account. If done successfully, you'll see that the system has been registered and it'll give you an ID. Now the next item on the list is to enable certain repositories that are crucial for RHEL 8.7. And the first one is RHEL-8-4-x86_64-base OS-RPMs. Again, take a second to pause the video if you need to capture the whole entire command. And if done correctly, you get a message saying that the repository was enabled for this system. Now there's one more that we're going to have to use that's also important for this, and it's called the AppStream repository. So I'll go ahead and show you what that command looks like. Subscription manager, repos, enable, and it's the AppStream RPMs. So go ahead and take a second to pause the video to make sure that you capture the name of the repository correctly. When inputting the command properly, again, you're also going to get a message saying that the AppStream repository is enabled for this system. So now with both of those repositories enabled, we have what we need in order to get started updating our virtual machine. Let's go ahead and clear our terminal, and we're going to run the command dnf update -y. And this command updates our virtual machine, make sure that we have all the latest packages. And if you're curious as to what the -y means, -y basically says say yes for all the packages. Because when you download these packages, there's a prompt that comes up if you don't give it the -y that says, do you really want to install these packages? And we don't want to be bothered with that, so we're going to hit the -y in order to just say yes for all the packages and go ahead and update them. So you should see that it starts pulling in all the updates and making sure that it updates the packages along the way. So this is going to take quite a little bit of time. So let's go ahead and speed up the video a little bit to make sure that we get to the end of updating the virtual machine. So we are now done installing the updates in order to update our virtual machine. But there is another item that we need to take care of. And for those who may be wondering, hey, how come this virtual machine doesn't show me a GUI or a graphical user interface? And that's because whenever we do the unattended install, it just installs the necessary files in order to make sure that we get the server up and running. In order to follow our videos and learn about where the terminal is in the GUI and some other things that you're going to have to learn, it is necessary to have the GUI installed to be able to see how you navigate the operating system. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to install the necessary packages in order to bring up our GUI or graphical user interface. And the command we use in order to do that is dnf group install, and we definitely want to put this next part in quotations, server with GUI. And then of course, after we're done with the server with GUI and we put that in quotes, we're going to give it a -y in the end in order to make sure that it doesn't prompt us in order to install this package. So go ahead and pause the video just in case you want to capture that command correctly. So now you start to see that it's going and pulling in all those packages that are necessary to install the GUI. So we're going to give this a couple of minutes in order to make sure that this installs. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video just so you can see what it looks like after it's done installing all these packages. After we're done installing the packages for server with GUI, let's go ahead and reboot our Red Hat machine. So we type reboot on the command line and we wait for the operating system to come back up. Now the operating system's back up and it presents us with our login screen. But you may be wondering and asking, hey, I thought we installed the packages for the GUI in order to have our GUI come up. Why am I presented with what looks like a command line? And I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do in order to enable the GUI. Now, as root, we're going to type in the following command: system control, set default, and then graphical.target. And once you hit that command, then you can go ahead and reboot. Now, again, if you wanted to take a look at that command, go ahead and pause the video and make sure you type the command in properly. And once you've rebooted, you'll then start to see that the operating system comes back up again. And once it comes back up again, you'll actually see your GUI presented to you. With the GUI up and running, you can go ahead and click your username, type in your password, and you'll be presented with the desktop. Since it's our first time actually presented with our desktop, we have this welcome screen. So what I'm going to do in the welcome screen is I'm going to leave everything as default, and I'm going to run with the default settings and actually close out of the welcome screen. You're more than welcome to change any of the settings as you see best fit for you. But again, the defaults work best in our case. So welcome back. By now, you should have completed all the steps necessary in order to virtualize Red Hat Enterprise Linux on an Intel-based Mac. Now keep in mind, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this does not apply towards ARM-based Macs, specifically Macs with the M series chips. But not to worry, we're going to make a video addressing those specific Macs so that way you can also learn Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Also, if you have any additional questions on the process, go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment section below, and we'll make sure that we answer your question. Now that you're up and running with Red Hat Enterprise Linux on your Intel-based Mac, make sure you're following the series so that way you can continue learning Linux on your Intel-based Mac. As always, guys, if you like the videos, make sure you give me a thumbs up for the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel while turning on your notifications. That way you're always notified whenever we upload to the channel. And share the video with a family member or friend, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.